Jeremy Bash and I started this conversation in the last block, and I want to get to Puerto Rico because it's also a homeland security risk. But, Jeremy, if you could just weigh in on this idea. I remember at that briefing, I think it was day 4 or 5 of the self-inflicted crisis, really was a slow-motion car wreck, watching this White House fight with a Gold Star widow for 7 days. Donald Trump live tweeting her appearance on GMA. The White House Chief of Staff taking to the podium in the press briefing room, giving a heart-wrenching description of how his own son came home, but then also using that same appearance to attack the credibility of the widow's representative in Congress. I wonder if you can speak to just the strategic importance of our military deployments in Africa, how many more or less troops are deployed, and the nature of those missions.
Well, there are 2 places in the world where our combatant commanders, our 4 stars, are in a shooting war. One is obviously Central Command with General Joe Votel, but the other is Africa Command with General Tom Waldhauser. And I know General Waldhauser well, and I've visited him at his headquarters a few months back. And they are dropping ordnance on targets as we speak. They're putting service members into harm's way. They're walking patrols with soldiers and service members and intelligence officers from their African allies. They're trying to work out of the Horn of Africa. We have a base there in Djibouti. There is a tremendous amount of military activity the United States is doing in Africa to protect our homeland. It is very much a national security and a homeland security issue, as you point out. And,
Melissa, I remember your appearances here at this table as the calamity and the humanitarian crisis unfolded, seemingly without any federal response that matched the response to the hurricanes in Texas and Florida in the same hurricane season. I wonder, one, how was the island doing? And 2, what role do you think the president's sort of orientation around race played in the response?
I think it played everything. And I think that it is important on this day when we commemorate and celebrate the legacy, the sacrifice, the work of Martin Luther King, that the contrast couldn't be more stark between that figure for whom we have a national federal holiday and the occupant in the White House. Someone whose eloquence in language and being able to articulate positions of justice and equity versus the crassness, vulgarity, and childish vocabulary of this president. Someone who had love in his heart and believed in equality for everybody versus someone who is so divisive and who believes that people of color generally are less capable of contributing to this country. There is a stark contrast here, which is dangerous. Obviously, he's leading us down a dangerous path. So Puerto Rico still is in a situation where it is a humanitarian situation. We still have 40% of people without electricity. We have woeful negligence on the part of this administration. We have a tax plan that was put in place which is going to hurt economically further the island of Puerto Rico. We have no sense of urgency with regards to making sure that we can put it back on a path towards rebuilding. And so there's great concerns, and I believe very much that his position overall, and I've been saying this since the beginning, many of us have been saying this since the beginning, that we've always known and believed that Trump has been racist. And that obviously clouds the way that he approaches issues and the policies and this administration puts forward. So that, in the case of Puerto Rico, clearly is being borne out.
You're nodding.
You know, well, I wanted to say, look, this morning I read a letter from a Birmingham jail, and I think anyone watching this right now should take 10 minutes from their day and go and just honor Dr. King by reading that. And while I was reading it, I was reminded Martin Luther King Day is my holiday. It's not the African-American holiday. That's the way that Donald Trump is treating it. It's like, oh, it's a holiday for those people. It's my holiday. It's an American holiday, and it's important, and this goes to something the Reverend said, it has national security implications because the United States is the country of Martin Luther King, not Idi Amin, not Adolf Hitler, not other racial or ethnic dividers or bigots. What gives the United States its attractive power, what gives the United States moral authority when we go and fight in Niger or Somalia or elsewhere, is that we are the nation of Dr. King. We have that sort of uniquely universalistic message that we are all brothers and sisters and equal under God.
Has he taken that from us?
I think this is what is so profoundly corrosive and damaging and almost irreversible about the Trump administration, that if you are looking at the United States today from Vietnam, from South Africa, from elsewhere in the world, can you say that about the United States? The United States has become the United States of white identity politics, Donald Trump, division, and disrespect. And that
I have to get to a break, but irreversible?
I hope it's not irreversible, but it's profoundly corrosive.
All right, up next, it's hard to imagine a situation requiring a White House response more serious than a nuclear scare, even if it turns out to be false.